Right, let's kick this off with an important question that we all ask ourselves at least once a day. Who am I? You might be thinking, oh, I know who I am. I'm a student, I'm a professional, I'm a TikTok queen. Maybe you've even written a few thoughtful Instagram captions about it. Something like, finding myself in the process, or still figuring it out but trust the journey. And honestly, same. But here's the twist. What if I told you that the self you're so proud of is not a discovery, but a construction? A construction designed by some pretty powerful forces, namely capitalism and social media algorithms. It's easy to think that finding yourself is a personal quest. You know the whole journey where you meditate, soul search, and eventually stumble upon your true self? But what if I told you that in late capitalism, the idea of finding yourself is actually a marketing scheme? It's the whole industry built on the notion that you need to be constantly searching for your identity. And of course, buying the right products along the way, whether it's the right moisturizer, therapy app, or dating service. We are sold the idea that in order to be our authentic selves, we need a brand. In fact, we don't just have identities anymore, we have personal brands that are carefully curated, aesthetically pleasing, and constantly being edited for the next viral moment. This isn't just about being you, it's about selling you. So, welcome to the era of self as a product. The self is not a thing you are, it's a thing you are constantly creating and marketing to the world. And here's the kicker, it's also something you're constantly being judged on. In fact, you're probably reading this right now wondering, is my self presentation as good as this presentation? Spoiler, it's not. This is where we are at. The self has become a product of the system. The deeper you dig into it, the more you realize that this isn't some dystopian future. This is the world we are living in right now. And guess what? The joke's on all of us. But the beauty is, the more we laugh about it, the more we understand it. And maybe even take control of it at some point. So, buckle up. We are about to explore how we went from searching for our authentic self to curating performances of the self. And trust me, this is going to be a ride. It's going to be full of Freud, memes, and maybe a few moments of existential panic. But don't worry, I promise there will be grass to touch at the end. Let's dive in with a little Freud, the man who taught us that we are all secretly obsessed with ourselves. Freud, in his 1914 essay on Narcissism and Introduction, starts us off by exploring two types of narcissism. First, there is primary narcissism, the healthy kind, where we all start off as babies who think that the world revolves around us. And then there is secondary narcissism, where we start to turn all this self-love into something more pathological. But what happens when narcissism isn't just something personal? What happens when society rewards us for it? That is where Christopher Lasch comes in. In his 1979 book, The Culture of Narcissism, Lasch argues that narcissism went from becoming an individual psychological flaw to a cultural norm. In the 20th century, narcissism isn't just something you had, it was something you performed. It became a survival strategy in a world that demanded constant visibility. Fast forward to today, and we are living in an influencer's age. Lasch predicted the rise of a society obsessed with superficial self-presentation. Narcissism isn't just an illness, it's a job. The want for money, the want to build a brand. And to do that, you've got to constantly show your best self. Think of Instagram, TikTok, or even Twitter. These platforms aren't just social media networks. They are narcissism factories. But wait, here's the kicker. The influencers don't just want to be admired. They want constant visibility. And this is where we become the panopticon. Foucault, borrowing from Bentham, imagined a prison where inmates police themselves because they might be watched at any time. That is our world now. We have internalized the gaze, not from a guard tower, but from the followers, from algorithms, and from imaginary audiences. We perform constantly, not just to be seen, but because we believe someone might be watching. It's not enough to be liked anymore. You have to be seen, always. Let's talk emotions. No, not your real emotions, but your curated ones. Remember Ali Hochschild's 1983 book, The Managed Heart, where she talks about emotional labor, the work of managing and performing emotions for others? She was talking about the service industry, but it applies to all of us now. Emotional labor isn't something that you just do at the checkout counter, it is something you are doing every time you post online. Wait now, listen to this, I'm getting somewhere. Emotions are now content. Whether you're posting about your recent heartbreak, sharing an outrage, or showing off your latest good vibes vacation, emotional expressions have become a part of the emotional economy. Think of it as emotional capitalism, where feelings aren't just something you feel, they're something you sell. Your personal pain, joy, or even vulnerability are all products to be consumed by followers and fans. In Cold Intimacies, The Making of Emotional Capitalism, Eva Illouz explores how capitalism commodifies emotions. She explains how companies, influencers, and even dating apps use emotional appeal to sell products or items. The more genuine and relatable you can seem, the more followers you can accumulate, which then translates to validation and yes, profits. But there's a downside: exaggerated affect. If you are not constantly showing positivity, outrage, or vulnerability, are you even alive in the emotional economy? It's exhausting. It's one of the reasons why we see the rise of burnout. Now, let's look at the concept of burnout, a concept that's all too familiar for most of us. In byung-chul Han's The Burnout Society, Han takes a deep dive into the pathology of positivity. He argues that the stress of modern society does not come from repression. Like Freud might have said, instead it comes from internalized pressure to constantly optimize ourselves. We are not just trying to survive, we are trying to be better, faster, and more efficient, and at all cost. Where Freud had the superego, which demanded your repression, your instincts, and your desires, today's superego is the productivity coach. Think of every self-help book you have read that tells you how to hack your life, how to be more organized, more positive, more successful. The idea is simple. You must optimize yourself. And if you don't, well, you're failing. But this constant push for productivity has a cost. As Han writes, we've shifted from a society of discipline where you're forced to do things to a society of achievement where you're expected to do things. And this constant pressure without respite leads to burnout. No wonder mental health struggles are on the rise. Our identity is constantly up for sale and evaluation. This isn't just a trend, it's a structural issue. The self isn't suppressed anymore, it's exploited. And that's where we run into problems like depression and burnout. We have internalized this so much that our worth isn't just tied to what we do, it's tied to how we do it. And constantly measuring ourselves against an impossible standard leads to exhaustion. Does that sound familiar? So, where do we go from here? If the self is a construct, always shifting and rebranding itself to fit the needs of capitalism, what if we didn't have to find ourselves? What if the healthiest self wasn't a fixed identity but a flexible one, constantly in relationship with others? In Technologies of Self, Michel Foucault explores how people create their identities, not as fixed essences but as an ongoing process that is shaped by social and cultural forces. The self isn't a thing to find, it's a thing to make, or maybe unmake. Foucault argues that instead of looking inwards to find our authentic self, we need to look outwards at the relationships and systems that shape us. In Relational Being, Kenneth Gergen suggests something even more radical. Identity is not something we possess, it's something that emerges through relationships. You are not a self locked inside a body, waiting to be discovered. You are a set of connections and interactions with the people around you. The self is not an essence to be found, it's a performance that happens when we engage with the world and others. Maybe we need to rethink this obsession with finding our true selves and start focusing on being present in the moment, being flexible with our identities, and embracing the fact that self is not a fixed thing. It's an emergent process that is shaped by context, relationships, culture, and it is a lot more freeing than trying to find the perfect Instagram ready version of yourself. Don't you think? So, to wrap it all up, you are not a brand, you are not a product, you are not your followers or your hustle. You are a beautiful, messy, shifting human being navigating an incredibly weird world. And here's the important takeaway: log off, go outside, touch some grass. This is my invitation to you. The self isn't something you find or force into existence. It's something you experience in real time, in real places, with real people. Because in the end, meaning isn't something you find inside yourself, it's something you create with others.